Alright, apes, it's time to take a break. Let's go on a little field trip. Here I am at my favorite park, Indian River Park, or Ipswich, what it looks like. And we'll go from the top, this is where we are, down to the bottom, and then back up to the top. Hopefully we'll see some critters, or at least the remnants of them. Alright, here we go. And if you come here, you just gotta be aware. There's a lot of poison ivy. So what does poison ivy look like? Nah, that's what it looks like. It has 3 leaves, kind of rounded, not serrated, and sometimes they're shiny, sometimes they're not. So this whole little patch right here is poison ivy, so you just gotta be aware. You know, stay on the path. And, I haven't gotten it. I just know what it looks like. Let's avoid it. But here's one of my favorite plants right here, pawpaw. I'll show you some pictures of the flower and the fruit. That's pretty cool. This is a picture of the pawpaw flower. It blooms in early spring. Kind of a pretty little flower, isn't it? Almost red. And then this is the pawpaw fruit, which comes due in August. This is called mayapple. It's an early spring plant. Comes back every year. Apparently it's edible. Not that I've ever had it. The flower puts out a little bloom, which becomes a little apple-looking thing. Doesn't look like an apple to me, but that's what people call it. Anyway, this is a little bird blind where you can sit here and put binoculars through and, you know, kind of hide yourself from the birds. But, you know, this forest is definitely going through secondary succession. Remember, primary succession, no soil; secondary succession, lots of soil. And then for some reason there was an event which took everything away, and then it just kind of quickly came back. You know, it's like if the football field, if we stopped living at the football, stopped cutting the football field, it would go through secondary succession. And over time it would look somewhat like this, you know, a deciduous, temperate deciduous forest. All depends on the amount of rain and temperature that will equal that particular biome. That's a gigantic tree. You know, that is a tree. That's a big tree. So this is Indian River. Ultimately, this will enter the eastern branch of the Elizabeth River, and then Chesapeake Bay. So this is all connected. Remember when we went to Caroline Farm to prevent, you know, that eutrophication? What kind of a biome would be the best biome that would act as a riparian or a buffer? Probably this kind. I mean, look at this leaf litter. It is a spongy mass for sure. That's going to soak up some water right there, and then just the trees itself is going to slow down water so it doesn't ultimately take nutrients into the bay and that cause that eutrophication. So, you know, the second question is going to be some type of problem, and then you have to come up with a solution. That's Caroline Farm trip. Yeah, it's definitely just that. Now here's one of those May apples. You can see it's already starting to form a sort of an apple-ish, a fruit. Definitely not ripe, but that's what it kind of looks like. This is interesting. You can see it's over all of this, and I think what that is there's an insect that's actually eating it. Some of them are, it's worse. Look at that one. Whew. Wow. So, you know, you got a nice little food chain right here. You know, the sun makes the energy for this guy to live, ultimately to reproduce, and then something else is eating it. and then probably something is eating that little insect. Look at all this pawpaw. Now, with that food chain, what was the amount of energy that's transferred up the food chain? Probably about 10%. Where does the other 90% go? Metabolism, all of that type of stuff. Now this little trail is real good sort of example of invasive species. All of this is Japanese rose. Japanese rose came from Japan, and it really smells nice. It's a cute little plant, but it got out. And here's another, invasive species. This honeysuckle that came also, I think, from Asia, but I'm not exactly sure. But it's definitely invasive. Oh, it smells so pretty. And then there's this stuff here. This is called privet. Privet grows all year long, and so it outshadows some of the stuff that's on the bottom. And this was actually pretty low last year, and now because it grew during the winter, it's given it a competitive advantage over the native plants. You can see that this part of the forest, it really does look different because of all these invasive species. Although this is one of the coolest parts, and I'll show you why. Right here, a little trail that goes right back into it's like a hide tree. I suppose you could hide in there if you were being chased or something. Anyway, looks like a phone booth. Okay, doesn't look like a phone booth. Anyway, as we continue on. Now this part of the forest is a little bit different. I think it's sort of late. It's late successional, but it hasn't reached the climax community yet. You can see that most of the leaf litter are pines because most of the trees are pines. Now it's transitioning to an oak hickory or an oak forest. These smaller trees, well, that's a sweet gum, but some of these other trees are going to be, larger than the pines. But right now, it's definitely in succession, but it's not a climax community yet, as you can see. And now we're coming to a field. A field they sort of cut, but they also have let kind of grow. Now the reason why it's a field is because it's these high tension wires. That's why, but some of it, as you can see over there, is cut. And I'll give me just a second. I'll show you where you are in relationship to here. If it's a clear day, and I think it is, you'll be able to see downtown Virginia Beach. Yep, you can see that way down there. That's town center. Well, you can see here, that right next to where they've cut, you have, the products of secondary succession. You got a whole bunch of trees that are just starting. Those sweet gums, they grow quickly. You got some pine trees in there, you got some other trees, you got some maples, stuff that are going to be understory, and then once they get big enough, then you'll have other trees that will take over. Alright, so secondary succession happening right here in Virginia Beach. Snuffleupagus, right? Maybe. Anyway, here we have a dead tree. So all those nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, carbon, all those are going back into the soil. Detritivores, decomposers, and then once those nutrients are in the soil, then it can be taken up by plants again. So the other side of that food chain. You can hear the birds really carefully. You can actually hear them talking to each other. I don't know if you can hear it on the camera, but there's one that's coming from that way, and there's another one that's answering from over here. That's just cool. you can see this is English ivy, brought here probably from England, and as you can see, it's just taken over. So invasives, they can do quite a bit of damage. You remember from the Caroline farm trip that the higher the biodiversity, the greater the resilience of an ecosystem. So this ecosystem has not very many different kinds of critters in it. I can see some, that's Virginia creeper, and then there's some small trees, but you can see that it's much less than what I'll show you in just a second. Why does this forest make such a good riparian zone? Well, just look at the leaf litter. Let's just look at the leaf litter, and you can see that it's smushy. It's pretty deep. So that in of itself is going to just soak up lots and lots of water, which then soaks up the nutrients, which then prevents it from becoming a eutrophicated water, whatever it goes into. So the forest looked like this up until about a year ago. And so this is sort of the southeast corner. And what they did is the gentleman who owned it finally got a permit to build on it. Let's go take a look at how they're going to manage water. All right, that's what this fairly large lake is. So if you live by a lake, probably one of the reasons why it's there is it was a borrow pit, and it was also used as a way for managing water. So this is fairly large, but then again, you have a fairly large place that it has to manage. And so, it looks cool, man. Except, is this really going to manage the water that is going to fall on this area, as well as a forest buffer? And here's the real reason why people come to Ipswich. Good grief. And here, these two guys. There's at least two. That one, and that one. Like a little triangle. It's cool. Well, we've come back to the beginning. I hope you get to come here and maybe just a little bit of a review. Hopefully it was more than that. It was just a chance to get away. And when you come here, try to make those connections. Make those connections with what this ecosystem is and what it does, and how we could, when you build on it, obviously that changes. Its functionality becomes different. And how can we maintain at least some semblance of the natural function of an ecosystem. Alrighty. Oh, but that's an interesting tree. Look at that. What is that? This looks like it has little berries. Alright. Have a great day. See you later. See you Thursday.